Welcome to Talk of the Bay, KSQD's local news program brought to you every weekday at 5 p.m. I'm your host, Suki Wessling, and today we continue our coverage of the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music, which starts its season on July 24th. You can learn more about the festival at cabrillomusic.org. The podcast page for this show that will go live a couple of hours after the show will include links to other shows about the festival that we are doing this season. So please check ksqd.org later for details. The Cabrillo Festival features top composers of contemporary music around the world. Today we're going to look at a different side of the festival, because the paid concerts comprise only a part of what the festival offers. Although I love the paid concerts, my favorite event each year is the one we'll discuss today. It's called In the Works, and it features the works of emerging composers conducted by the resident conductor of the festival and free to the public. This concert offers listeners an intimate look at a process that is largely invisible to the concert-going public, how composers and conductors get trained, get noticed, and moved up into the next levels of the world of contemporary music. Today, I will speak with three people featured in this year's In the Works concert. Octavio Mas Arocas is the resident conductor of the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music, music director and conductor of the Mansfield Symphony Orchestra in Ohio and the Marquette Symphony Orchestra in Michigan, and director of orchestras and professor of orchestral conducting at Michigan State University, which happens to be the alma mater of some of my family members. Welcome, Octavio.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Originally from Barcelona, Marc Migo moved to New York in order to pursue his master's at the Juilliard School. Recent awards include the 2020 George Enescu Prize, the 2021 Organ Torrida Award, and the 2022 Dominic Argento, probably, Fellowship in an Opera Composition, among others. Welcome, Marc.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be with you now.
Thank you for being here. I should have practiced saying that list of prizes you won. It was quite a mouthful. And Wenbin Liu is a U.S.-based Chinese composer and guitarist. His work combines contemporary Western techniques with ancient Oriental culture. Welcome, Wenbin. So, Octavio, can you start by giving us a summary of what the public will hear when they attend In the Works?
Yes. So this is a very exciting concert. I mean, every concert at the festival is very exciting. What makes this an exciting concert is that we match. Actually, you mentioned in the initial remarks. Thank you very much for those remarks. That I will be conducting the concert, but I think it's even more exciting than me conducting the concert. Actually, is that we are matching these three new pieces by three very talented young composers with six young conductors. So what we do is each of the pieces we perform twice on the same concert by two different conductors. So you have this is very exciting because you have this a combination of the young conductors, which are really talented, working hand by hand with these young composers, which are also very talented, bringing together their voices, and they have the opportunity to just do this in two different ways somehow. So this is to me is very daring to me for many reasons. One is you see these young people working together and bringing these two different voices for one piece. And also, I want to say just that many years ago, I used to be one of the young conductors,
wow.
And I was part of that concert.
Well, then I probably saw you because you know what, you jogged my memory. I had completely forgotten about the repetition of the pieces, and that is, I want to say, it's really cool to listen to because I think the listening public is used to going to a concert and hearing a piece polished and performed exactly the way the conductor wants it. And in this case, they're going to experienced that twice in a row, 3 times.
Yes, twice in a row. And don't get me wrong, this orchestra is wonderful. I mean, this is a fabulous orchestra. They are really good musicians, and the pieces will be performed really well. I mean, this orchestra can play anything, and so this is to me is one of the most exciting. Just of course, like I said just before, I just many years ago I came as a student. I was one of those students, and just you pass forward a few years, many years, and then I'm one of the faculty who is teaching now this in this festival, which is to me it's just this is one of the best festivals in the world, and is the best of this kind.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I really love about the concert, because I have been attending since before I had children, then I had children, and now they're grown up. And and so that's a while too. That's why I said I probably saw you at some point. But I loved the fact that the educational component of a lot of organizations, the public doesn't really see that much, like it's not part of what the public sees. The public goes to see the fabulous orchestra and the fabulous famous conductor, but they don't realize all this cool stuff that's happening behind. But it's like the Cabrillo Festival also shares all of that with us.
Yes, and there are a couple of aspects of that we just do really well in here. Actually, this workshop, the Composers Conductor workshop, is literally one of the best out there. Like some of the conductors that we have are actually all of the conductors that we have and composers, and being just the best of the generation, and just really we have literally hundreds and hundreds of applicants to just like a few spots from all over the world. All over the world, people that come and just they are like really already just conducting and composing and doing wonderful things. So it's that we see this conducting conductors composers workshop in Santa Cruz, and people go there just to the concerts. They just really like it. It's just very exciting. They don't realize it's among the best in the world. I mean, just the level is outstanding.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting, because I don't think that Santa Cruz thinks of itself as the center of the world. In many ways, many people come here so that they're not in the center of the world.
I think that's very endearing, actually. Just that because that's actually the truth for everything in the festival. It's just like the music, the kind of level that orchestra plays. Christy. Actually, the administration, everyone in there is just top notch. I mean, it's just everybody comes from amazing places. Everybody there in the festival, they could be just doing and they are doing amazing things. It is just top notch. And to me, that the community embraced this in a nonchalant way. It's something that happens in their community. They embrace it. They appreciate it. But it's not something that they need to just do anything to make it feel more important than it is. It's just they go with it, which is really, I think, is very endearing. They come to see, and it has been very special to me over the years. People come to see the rehearsals, and just in the last few years, Victor Marsalis was there in rehearsal. Just they were coming. Oh, look, it's Victor Marsalis. Just they come and say, oh, look, that's John Corelliano. It's just okay. We are talking about the best of the best, and these people are coming, and sometimes they go there and they talk to them. Oh yeah, I remember, and the other thing that is really really incredible to me is that the community just appreciates new music. And just there are composers and artists that come back year after year, and they just you have this person who just otherwise just, I don't know if they follow so much of classical music, but they just know about new music, and they tell you about, well, I like this music because of this, because of that, and they start talking. You're like, yeah, this it's it really talks about the kind of sophistication of this community, and also how they embrace this, which is really important. This festival is really important because, in part, because of the community that is just supporting it.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you. It makes it it makes me feel proud of our community. I wanted to bring Wenbin in. Wenbin, are you there?
Yes.
Oh,
Hi, so I'm sorry for what
That's
just happened. Thanks
That's
for having me here.
that's just live radio in the internet age. I wondered if you could describe the piece of yours that's going to be performed.
Yes. My piece called Germination. It's a piece for chamber orchestra, about 7 minutes. I composed the piece right before the COVID, so it has never been performed due to the lockdown. And right now, I'm really excited that Cabrillo Festival Orchestra will perform this piece in a few days, finally. And yeah, about the piece, it's only about the word germination. Normally, it means a tree grows from a seed, and but in my piece, I see that as a process. I applied a simple motif to develop the music, and that's all I wanted to express. And also about the title, it has a deeper meaning. Actually, this was told by one of my colleagues. I never realized this before, but if you separate the word germination, then what can you get? You can get a germ, a nation, an I in the middle of it. I feel it's just perfect, appropriate to describe the last 2 years.
That is.
Yeah, our whole world was just a germ nation, and I means all the human beings. We were all suffer from the virus, and we still are, but we are fighting for it. So yeah, I think that's about my piece.
And how does it feel to know that it's going to be conducted twice in a row? What do you expect to hear as a composer when you hear two different conductors conducting it?
Wow, it's just amazing. I never have this experience before. I just hope to get people's reception, and I hope to know what they feel about the music. And also, there are composers like Stacey Garrop. She's the mentor of this workshop. I hope to get some advice from her, and also the fellow composers like Mark from here. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. And Mark, could you tell us a little bit about the piece of yours that's being performed?
Sure, with pleasure. So initially I titled this piece Berceau's Lament because of its rocking nature, like a lullaby, and its very long, sort of romantic, lush melody in it. But then I had this very lucky conversation with a very good friend of mine, Marta Lambert, who's a fantastic violist that I met at Juilliard. And she introduced me to the genre of the dumka, which is a term of Slavic origin, which pretty much synthesizes what this piece is about. It's like dumka translates as a thought, like it has this kind of ruminative nature, and it has this middle section which is more like a fast, more agitated, and it really applies to that, and it even connects more with the dedicatee of the work, who is my ex-wife, who just happens to be Ukrainian, and I was writing this as around February, where the Russian invasion of Ukraine started, and so it really affected me. And this piece is a kind of an elegy, a kind of invocation for peace and reconciliation, so to speak. It has this maybe a bit of a Slavic flavor, I guess, to it. Yeah.
Interesting. And both of you have these sort of coincidences as far as the theme of the piece. How do you feel, Mark, about having your piece performed twice and conducted by two different conductors? What are you hoping to learn from that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with Wenbin, absolutely. It is a privilege. It's something so exciting. For me, one of the signs of good music, what I try to do also as a composer, is to produce music that can have the room, that can accommodate different interpretations. So I'm very much looking forward to what each conductor has to say, and how each performance will differ from the other, and see how it changes. That's also very exciting, and also to have the piece performed twice, and presented in front of an audience in such a prestigious festival. It's utterly exciting.
Uh-huh. And what? How much have you heard your work performed by groups like this? I mean, I know that these days, it's different than when I was in college. And when I was in college, and I did study music as a side thing in college. The composers would form these little groups so that you could perform your music, so that you could hear your own music, because it was the early years of computers, and nobody was able to do what you can do now, which is you can score the whole thing on a computer and hear it. But how much do you actually do as a young composer today? How much access would you have to, say, this is going to be a smaller chamber orchestra, but a chamber orchestra or a symphony?
Well, I mean, in my particular case, to begin with, I always write by hand, and then I use the Sibelius program to type it in. And in this case, this piece, which is called Dumka for Anya, it will be premiered at the festival. So I haven't worked it with any other orchestra, although there's this MIDI realization of the computer program. But I guess what any composer wants is to see how his or her works are performed and kind of acquire a life of their own, right? Kind of as if they were the children that kind of, move away, and then they are, they're moving around the world, so to speak. And in that regard, I mean, it's pretty exciting. I just come. By the way, now I'm talking from Barcelona. It's like 2 a.m. in the morning. No, but I'm
glad you're good enough at math to actually
exactly.
Right.
I took my time to really make sure. But I just come now from the premiere of a chamber opera of mine in the Barcelona Opera House that has been performed like 6 times now.
Wow.
And it's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have access to this kind of opportunities and see your music performed by different orchestras. Recently I had another, like a nocturne, an orchestral piece that was first performed at with the Juilliard Orchestra in 2018, and since then it has been performed also with the Minnesota Orchestra, with the Tbilisi in Georgia, like as in Europe, Orchestra, and then recently in Barcelona. So that's I think what every composer strives for, to see their music performed and hopefully also presented at the highest level, which I'm sure it will be the case here, which is so exciting. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So So something that you said, and we have to take a break in just a couple minutes. So I'm gonna get to you, Wenbin, after the break with the same question about the process and hearing your music. But I thought it was really interesting. I should have typed down what you said. The word you said about I don't think you said soulless, but when you hear a computer play your music, it doesn't really have.
Right.
It doesn't have any. It's just the. How do you hear that? How does it sound to you?
Well, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself here, because maybe there's different opinions, but I mean, it's obviously hollow, and which doesn't mean that it cannot be helpful for musicians and conductors to get just a rough idea of the piece, how it works. But this is also the reason why I work by hand, because the risk with working with a music software is that you inevitably end up being limited by its, how it works. Whereas if you just try to work with your imagination, with your mind, and just with a paper, what you can do is limitless. That's what I try to do. And it's something that I agree with. I think you mentioned, or Octavio actually mentioned him, John Corigliano, that he has been my mentor for several years at Juilliard, and he's fabulous, and we agree a lot on how that process should be, both in writing the music and then in listening to it.
And I want to point out that this particular concert in the Cabrillo Festival is free. And so you should definitely go. You should go to the whole thing, but you should definitely go. Especially one of the things that I love about the festival is that there are plenty of experiences for people who don't have the money to go to the other concerts or who have children. And I want to put in an extra plug for that because my kids grew up going to open rehearsals, which are also free, and the outdoor festival, which I believe is not happening this year, but hopefully will come back, and also the In the Works concert, which we are now talking about. So I wanted to move to you, Wenbin, and ask you also about how much you have heard your music performed by larger ensembles, and also this question of what is it like to go from hearing it in your head to hearing it maybe on a computer to maybe then hearing live humans playing it?
Yeah. Actually, I secretly Googled some of the performers' name, and I found out those performers are from like big orchestras like Philadelphia and Chicago and some other. I was really amazed by this festival, how they gather all those people together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a privilege to us, like Mark said, they are not only performed once but twice. This is really rare for a festival. And also because of the name, it's not only Cabrillo Festival, it's also of contemporary music. Then this is super rare.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very happy that this festival can perform contemporary music. And sometimes I write music, in Sibelius, in notation software. It's really hard for me to imagine the real sound. And right now, this orchestra can help me to realize the sound. It's fantastic. So I just can't wait to hear the music and other guest composers and other guest composers and fellows' music.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I will be linking on the podcast page for this show to the SoundCloud for both you and Mark. So Wenbin and Mark both have some of their music up on the internet. So if you're interested in hearing more, you'll be able to access that. But in the second half of the hour, we're actually going to listen to some music. And Octavio, I wanted to ask you, what is it like to work, because when people think about classical music, of course, they're thinking about music by composers who are not around to complain, which can be convenient. What is it like to work with living composers and work with young composers and their reactions to hearing their work out in the air for the first time?
To me, that's one of the most essentials and amazing things that we do as performers, to work with someone directly, with a person who actually just came with the music and just bringing that music alive with the composer there next to you. I think it's just such a exceptional opportunity, and I think that's something that we ought to do, performers, like what we do in every performance. We need to do something that includes that, living composers. Like, it is such a great opportunity. Sometimes you're just like working with a composer, and you can see they're thinking about the sounds that are coming their way. So I've been sitting there working with the composers in the festival for other concerts, not only for this concert but for other concerts, and with really renowned composers. And I've been sitting there with them, and just you see them that they are like, their face is just thinking of something, and sometimes they look at you and say, I think that the orchestra can do this differently. And sometimes they look at you and they actually ask you, I don't know if that works. You think that we can change that? And then just all of a sudden, they're right on the spot, right then and there, they just change things. Mm-hmm. And just like to see something like that, experience that, it is just, I think it's just such a great opportunity to just be part of that process. And to see the mind of the composer thinking and just adapting to what the sounds are coming. And it is so exceptional. I think that, any orchestra, and, the audience, everyone could be very much more involved with new music if the performers themselves will really good believe on that collaboration between performers and living composers, and bringing music together in that way. I feel that some performance institutions, they just put new music in the programs as a matter of checking a mark. Okay, I need to do new music, so I'm just gonna put this music in there, and just they go through it. They just do it, just well or not so well, and just boom, that's it. Now we are gonna do something else. The difference here is just everything that they do in this festival, we do in this festival, it is top notch, and just like if the composers have a lot to say on here, and just their voice is being heard, and everybody in the festival puts so much love in doing this so well. And so the audience get that. The audience just feels that, and just inevitably everybody just love what is coming to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wondered how for you, since you mentioned that some conductors, just feel obligated to have some new music in the program, but clearly you don't feel that way. So how is it different from conducting a piece that is in the standard repertoire that you've heard other conductors do over and over? Perhaps, you grew up with some favorite recording, and then you go and conduct that piece versus conducting something that you've never heard before.
Right. So when you conduct something that have never been before, and especially if you have the composer there with you, to me it's like very liberating. You don't have anything else to. It's not so much to compare, but to limit you. And so you have the composer, and you are working with the composer, and you're bringing something alive that was in someone's head before, and only in someone's head before. It wasn't in a recording, hasn't been just performed before, and you're bringing that alive with the people who's in front of you and just the composer. So that's really, to me, is very very liberating, and also very exciting, because you're gonna bring something new to the audience. When you work with something that, let's say, Brahms, Beethoven, whatever you want to say, that is just in the repertoire of the orchestra, want it or not, even if you just come with, to those pieces as new, and you just you study them and just try to find your way through them, want it or not, there is always something that is guiding you, that is just, or pushing you one way or the other. And even if you just go with a fresh view of the piece, the audience might have had something to compare with, but they might love this recording that they have heard thousands of times, and then just you come with your own, the results of your study, and they just still, they have that other thing, that other performance that is in their mind. So just, it's a little more, it's tricky in the way that you are not only pleasing, or you are not only serving the composer, but you are also just comparing, or the audience is comparing that with the other references that they have. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. When you speak about it, I actually am thinking about some situations where I've had that reaction, listening to a live performance of something that I love, and thinking, this isn't how it's supposed to be sounding. And then I stop myself, because of course I want to hear their interpretation. But when you have a really favorite piece of music, that's hard.
Right. Like if there is someone there to just, like, I hate to say this comparison, but if someone doesn't just really understand this, like in classical musical terms, it is like when you hear a very famous rock band, like let's say Led Zeppelin, and then there are like these like 100 other cover bands, and they play a cover of Stairway to Heaven, and that's it is the music of Led Zeppelin, but it's not Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's like, I'm they're getting maybe 60% of Led Zeppelin. So there is always that kind of that you can be the same way with like if any classical music that you want. It's just there is always something there that is just whereas with new music, I think, and also just like I say, if you just put your heart into it, and you actually just really work the same way that you just work with a Brahms symphony. Let's just to say something, and you just take it as seriously as that, and you just try to just give your very best to it. I think that the audience notice that, and just they actually love it too.
Mm-hmm. So let's turn this around. You're talking about from the point of view of a conductor, but from the point of view of the audience, when they walk into a performance and they know this may be the first time that these sounds have ever been played by an orchestra, and the first time that the composer hears human beings playing this music, how would you suggest that people experience that? What are some things that you would say that to prepare themselves and to enjoy, get the most out of it that they can?
I think that just what they need to do is just take it all in. Like take the sounds that come their way and take everything in. I think that when composers compose a piece, sometimes they have a program, sometimes they don't have a program, sometimes they are thinking of an image, sometimes I'm thinking of a story, whatever it is. But at the end, it is about our intention of the music, or how we just take the music, which is what we take from it, what we just do with it. And so I think that when I present new music to an audience, I say just take it in, and just you are gonna make this for you, and just take these sounds, and you never know what's going on in their life at that point. Just like if they had a great day, or just they had a bad day, or just if they were like maybe just sad for something, very happy for something, and just they're taking that music and they bring it to their self, to their heart, and just they need to just make their own word with those sounds. Mm-hmm. I think that that's because and I think that that's one of the most wonderful things about music, right? It's just that something that I really enjoy and really like, and something that I think have a very specific image of something, of that sound. Maybe someone else just take it completely different. For some, that person is completely different. And I think that that's the wonderful thing about music. I think it would be very. I think it would be a mistake for any performer or composer to think that their music is always going to be taken in one way. Mm-hmm. That everybody is going to love it for this reason or for that other reason. Just I think that. And sometimes it's really wonderful when you just like you are doing something in a concert and just you don't completely get into something of the music, or just you are not completely sure something is gonna work, and then of that piece or the concert, and then someone in the audience come and they pinpoint that moment mm-hmm. that you were a little bit doubtful as one of the best moments in the concert, and you're like. Well, that's great. This is great. It's just, we have hearts and we are humans and we all think differently. And I think that we shouldn't put a lid on that. We should just let everybody just give what we have and just let everybody feel what they want.
Okay. That's a good way of putting it. Maybe I'm going to briefly shoot this question to you, Wenbin. What would you say to people about how to listen to contemporary music?
I am not the kind of person who always read program notes. And also I always title the piece after I composed my piece. So yeah, so after the reception, after the performance at the reception, I always got a lot really good interpretation about my music. I'm amazed by their interpretation of the music. I always like, oh my God, that can be my program note, and it's better than what I write, actually. And so I think, yeah, they don't need to prepare anything. They just have to listen to the music and get their own interpretation. That's it. That's all.
Okay. And Mark, how about you? What would you say to people coming in to listen to contemporary music for the first time?
I would agree totally with Wenbin. To come without any preconceptions of what is it that you are going to hear, especially if it's a piece that's performed for the first time and if you don't know the composer. It's kind of a journey. It's like a wonderful experience to discover something, and let yourself, invite yourself to wonder what is it going to be. This reminds me a bit of I think a sentence of a composer I like that he already passed. It's Schnittke, and he was saying how sometimes it's hard for an audience to hear a piece like the composer heard it in his mind or her mind when he wrote it. So it has to do with this thing of having an open mind and let oneself be surprised by the music that they are going to hear.
Yeah, I think the sense of surprise is, that's my favorite thing about listening to modern music, is really having no idea at all, unless I'm familiar with the composer. But of course, none of us are going to be familiar with the composers, except for the fact that I have listened to your SoundCloud accounts. So I have a little bit of expectation. But we're going to take a break, and we'll be back. But before the break, I would like to tell you that Christine and I, Christine Barrington, who hosts this show on alternate Mondays, and I have been doing a little series about the Cabrillo Festival, and her show from last week will be linked on the podcast for this show, and her show next week, Monday, July 25th at 5 p.m. It continues KSQD's in-depth look into the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music, returning back to live performances for their 60th anniversary season. Joining host Christine Barrington will be the festival's longtime executive director, Ellen Primack, along with composers Ivan Enrique Rodriguez and Stacy Garup, whose works exploring themes of power and social justice will have their West Coast premieres during July 30th's Let Me See the Sun at the Santa Cruz Civic Auditorium. And so I hope you all can listen in next week. Christine and I have been having a fabulous time, and I have interviewed Ellen before, and she's really great to listen to. She's not only incredibly knowledgeable because of her long tenure in the festival, but she is a local, and so she's very much connected with the community. So we will be back in 1 minute with more Talk of the Bay.
Community radio for the Central Coast, KSQD Santa Cruz.
The eighth wonder of the world!
Welcome back. We are speaking with Octavio Mas Arocas, who is the resident conductor of the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music, and two composers whose work will be presented on Tuesday, July 26th at the In the Works concert, Marc Migaud and Wenbin Liu. So getting back to the actual music, I would like the listeners to hear a little bit of what, I know you probably both have a wide variety of things that you have composed. And so I'm going to be really interested at the In the Works concert to hear how similar or different your pieces are that will be there. But we did choose a couple of pieces, and let's start with Wenbin's Adles. Is that how you say it? I know it's you tell the story on the page about how you looked up and saw a poster that said Zelda, and
Yes.
It's Zelda backwards. So it sounded very Spanish to me, which is fitting because of our other guests today. So Adles for guitar and fixed media. So let's listen, and maybe you can say a word about it. It's only 3 minutes, so let's just play the whole thing. Beautiful. Woo! It's continuing to play. There we go. That's I'm listening to that Wenbin for the first time in headphones. I didn't realize there was so much wonderful use of stereo sound. So I hope some of our listeners had headphones on to truly enjoy that.
Thank you.
So could you tell us a little bit about the process of that piece? Just a little bit about, how did you get the musical idea and where did you go from there?
Oh, it's very simple. All because last 2 years, it was very different. There were no concerts anymore, and all my performances were canceled. So I tried to affect it less from that turbulence. I started a new career, not a career. It's kind of like extended the range of my career. I started to do electronic music because I think I don't need performers to participate in my composition. What I need is just a laptop. So it was a big step for me because I have done acoustic, conventional contemporary music for a very long time, and I'm glad I made that decision, and I got a lot of opportunities from that. And for this piece, it was my first electronic piece, so I keep everything very simple. It's 4/4 beat from the top to the end. And also about the music, I don't know what I was writing. It's kind of like a piece for practice. And after that, I finished the piece. I had a Zoom meeting, and I saw this poster from behind. It's a Zelda poster, and then I saw that it's Atlas. Okay, just name that. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's the whole story of this piece.
All right. Well, yeah, and again, it's so interesting to me. I've been doing these interviews, throughout the pandemic, and then just hearing how people have found positive things, have found new careers, and there's another one of those great stories. So we're going to go next to Mark Migaud's Sonata Ferdanienka for cello and piano. right, and that was Mark's piece. Mark, can you tell us about it? I definitely heard an echo of the Romantics in there. It was really beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was the first movement of my cello sonata Sardanyenka, which it takes this title after a very, very pretty valley in the Catalan Pyrenees that's called La Cerdanya. And I'm lucky to have a house there. So it's an area that I know well. And it was actually a commission by a wonderful cellist, Philip Shigog, that I met at Juilliard. And the only condition for the commission was that I would draw inspiration from my cultural heritage in in any way. So I just decided to capture my feelings, to base my piece on the landscapes and myths of my home country, especially the Catalonia region. So that is the first movement, which is more like a landscape. And then you have the second movement that's like based on a myth of a water woman, which is kind of the Spanish equivalent of the Slavic Rusalka, I would say, and so on and so forth. But yeah, this was a live recording from several years ago, and I've been lucky to have worked with a fabulous cellist for this. It's called Mark Prichotko. So yeah, very happy about it.
Yeah, and I felt like, I don't know, do you feel like musically, is there any music that you heard as a child that was in there at all, or did you feel that you drew mostly from something else for the musical?
Well, it's one of these works that I don't do that in all of my music, but it's something that I've been doing more and more actually, which is to explore what this like Catalan Iberian flavor is, and try to put it into music. So there's not like a direct quote or anything like that, but there's some idioms, there's some gestures, there's some melodic turns, there's some rhythmic patterns that evoke a lot of this Catalan Mediterranean light. Like now, just when you did the fade out in the music, not long after, it would come like a kind of a recreation of a traditional Catalan dance that's called sardana, which has a very specific kind of rhythmic accompaniment with drums, and then there's a lot you can do with that with the cello, percussion-wise, and also with the piano. Yeah.
Okay, it was really nice to hear both of your work, and I have to say I chose pretty much randomly because I just thought, okay, well, in your case, I chose because I really liked the title, and I listened to it. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. And then the other one is just, I'm also a guitarist, though nowhere near your level of accomplishment, and I just loved hearing what you did with that guitar, and sort of thought that perhaps I wasn't sure if Segovia was turning in its grave, shocked at what you were doing, or saying, yeah, go ahead. Anyway, so we only have, amazingly, a couple minutes left. Wow. The hour always goes quickly. So, Octavio, I wondered if you could speak a little bit, just a minute or two, about the open rehearsals. And so, from a conductor's point of view, what is it like to have the public be able to come into a rehearsal and listen, and what do you think that they should be looking for? Because they're not going to necessarily hear whole pieces; they're going to hear parts. And I haven't. I'm not sure if the conductor ever even says much that the audience would be able to hear or respond to. So what should they listen for?
I think that having the open rehearsals is another of the beautiful and great things of the festival, is that audience can come from the to the beginning of the week and see how the pieces are shaping up, and then just go to the concert and see the final product. So and also just see the conductor and the musicians interacting and the composer interacting with each other, and just seeing all the changes and working in process. And to me, I'm a conductor, so just is one of the most fascinating things to see and experience. And that the audience can be part of that is great. And actually, just I heard so many people in the community that's one of the favorite things to do.
It is certainly one of my favorite. And like I said, with those of you who have kids, take your kids. It's great because you don't have to be worried about your kid getting bored or making noise or whatever. You just go out if they can't stay. So I want to thank you all. I can't believe how quickly this went. We have been talking about the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music, which is, you can find more information at cabrillomusic.org. So thank you, Wenbin, Mark, and Octavio, for all of your thoughts and your music.
Thank you so much. A pleasure.
Thank you very much.